children. They're acting like they're convinced that I'm a fucking kill them. They act like I'm like them and I'm not one in a billion. I am the devil's son. I have no fucking feelings. You're scared tight up at the sight of a killing. I'm not just giving up saying how I should be living. And I know I need to change and I'm ready, God willing. But I ain't more than I took out. It's just the kind of dealing. I won't tell you. Won't tell you. You say it's right. You say you will. Are you real? Are you real? Are you ready for that magical deal? My soul is scattered across the streets of idiots and pieces. Inside of my roaches and the rats and the rages. Life participated in murder. It's left me sleeping. So I put my head together. I kneel and I pray to Jesus. Oh, you're right. Tell me that this chance up. Cause I've done this before. I don't clam up. Get on the floor. Put your motherfucking ass up. I say, well, I'm a mother. Yeah. You say you can. You say you will. Are you real? Are you real? Are you ready for that magical skill? Are you tough? That ain't enough. You gotta roast every face that I touch. Watch out, yeah. Watch out, yeah. You say you can. You say you will. I've been under the knife, been in front of the gun. I have no fear. We don't turn and run where I'm from. We shoot our way out of here. Up into hell and back. Purified. I grit my teeth. Time. Then I watch this world just pass me by. I just sit and wonder why. Everything that I touch This place is eating me alive. This place is eating me alive. Watch out, cow. You say you can. You say you will. Are you real? Are you real? Are you ready for that? You're gonna steal, motherfucker. I am done. That enough. You gotta rust every place that I touch. Watch out, cow. Watch out, cow. You say you can. You say you will.
Welcome everyone to Alt-Right Hangouts. Today I'm going to be bringing in a guest. It's going to be Vladivostok 3701. He'll be here soon. And let's see. Alright, so there's going to be a little bit of dead air, but no worries. Everything will come back.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Could you hear me?
Yep.
Alright. So what's up, man?
Nothing much. I just finished dinner.
Nice.
I heard that song you played at the beginning. What was that?
Oh, that's King 810, and the song is called Murder, Murder, Murder.
Howdy,
That's
gentlemen.
pretty good.
Hey, what's up, Peter?
If you're into heavy metal, there's a band you should check out called Argo Slent. They sing about history and stuff. They're pretty right-wing, but you might like them.
Yeah. So I was hoping we could get on a topic. Let's see what we could talk about. And hold on, I'm gonna also see if Delta could join us as well.
Of course.
Yo, I was hoping we could dispel the myth that there's more white privilege.
That actually is quite timely because I was just speaking to my stepbrother and he was telling me all about my white privilege and you know how this was a terribly important thing for me to consider.
Yeah, check your privilege, you cis whites.
You're fucking a white male!
He didn't actually say that, but he pretty much implied that I should check my privilege. It was very surreal because I'd never had anybody actually tell me that before. And now it's it's like you think it's all online and now it's seeping over into the real world.
Well, the one thing that I have to disagree with the SJW crowd on in regards to white privilege is that I don't see white privilege as necessarily a bad thing, depending on which country we're talking about. If you take, I don't know, France or Britain or Germany, for example, I mean, those countries are traditionally white. When you think of German people, when you think of French people, you think of white people. So doesn't it make sense that those societies should cater to white values?
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
actually
That's like the Congo, I'm sure they have black privilege. Or in China, people there have Chinese privilege. People of Chinese descent are more likely to fit into society and will have more privileges.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good point, Vlad. And one of the things that they always say is that
Hey, guess who's coming in here probably?
who's that?
Arini.
Cool. Oh, but just to say, I hear an echo in the background. I don't know whose side that's
Oh,
on.
hold on. It's because my volume is too loud.
Oh wait, I think it's me. I'm sorry. All right.
All good?
Yeah, I'm
All
cool.
right. Who'd you say was coming in, Center? I missed that.
Arini.
Oh, Arini.
Yep.
Interesting character, that guy. So, yeah, it's hard to refute because it's sort of like an unfalsifiable claim.
Yeah.
All white people have white privilege is ridiculous. Like even if this was a complete ethno state, like not all white people would be a privileged group. So I don't even think that you need to go into any detail about it. I just reject it as being manifestly unknowable. Like how many birds are circling the Earth, flying overhead at this point in time? There's a certain number, but we'll never know. So there's no point
Yeah,
discussing it.
it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do acknowledge that there is such a thing as in-group bias. For example,
Sure.
people prefer to be with others like them. It may not necessarily be in regard to race. It may be in regard to like age group. I'm sure 12-year-olds would prefer the company of other 12-year-olds and not hang out with a 90-year-old. Or people who speak French would probably want to hang out with other people who speak French. So I think that if you have a society that's like 90 or 95% white, then it only follows that white people probably enjoy more privileges than Asian people or black people. I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing or something that has to be dismantled. It's just it just follows naturally from human nature.
Yeah, exactly. I was also gonna say this. So you know how they like to say more white privilege and stuff like that, leftists?
Yeah.
I was wondering, so if you know how they always like to argue that white people are more likely to graduate and stuff like that, but here's the thing though, since Chinese people in China are more likely to graduate than any ethnic minority or just any foreigner, would they consider that to be Chinese privilege?
Probably not. Probably
Yeah,
not. They don't.
That brings
They're.
up an interesting
Oh,
thing.
go ahead, Vlad.
Like the leftists, they always like to point to these disparities and statistics between whites and blacks. Like they'll say blacks get suspended more from school, or blacks have lower grade point averages than whites, and they'll see this as a consequence of racist discrimination, but they never take into account the disparities between whites and Asians. In almost every facet of society and education and the law, Asians outperform white people. So are they going to follow that, there's some sort of racist conspiracy against white people? No. It would be contrary to their narrative. So they just ignore these disparities and they just focus on the white and black disparities.
Yeah, it's just that many of these guys hate white people. Leftists are just anti-white.
Yeah, a lot of them are, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I can add to that. I pretty much agree with everything Vlad said there. Though I think it might be important to note that what he said about Asians, I think also last time I looked at comprehensive statistics for this, it held the same for Asians who were immigrants as well as ones who had been born here. So that was interesting.
Do you think it's because of Asian culture?
I think it's no, I think that shows that there's something inherent genetically to it because, like the ones that are born over here aren't going to be born into, most of the time, into an Asian culture. It'll be just the American melting pot thing. So, no, I think that's a genetic predisposition to certain traits. Like people make fun about it, like they're good at playing the piano and mathematics. I think they are inherently good at mathematics, and there are numerous statistics to show that. And I don't see any problem with that. These things are hard to talk about because then people will say they want to leap off of what you say and go to the most extreme direction possible. Now you're advocating for eugenics camps or stuff like that. Like you never say anything close to it, but
yeah, you're just advocating for white supremacy and genocide if you think that there are differences between people.
Yeah, and no.
Yeah, and another tactic that people on the left like to use in response to this kind of discussion is that they use what's called in some circles naxal. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but they basically point to an example that doesn't fit into this. That doesn't fit into the norm, and they'll say like, "Oh, look at there's this black guy who's really smart and he has all these PhDs and he won the Nobel Peace Prize. So therefore, your hypothesis that there's differences between whites and blacks is false." Or they'll point to these outlier examples as proof that you're wrong.
That's easy to refute because then all you have to say is that Sherlock Holmes was wrong when he said that I never make exceptions. An exception disproves the rule. An exception does not disprove the rule. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all of the exceptions to the like Newton's theory with Einstein or the quantum mechanical exceptions to his theory with gravitation. So they don't, like they're all mutually supportive, even though they accept each other.
Yeah, the one form of the Naxalt argument that really pisses me off, that really rustles my jimmies, so to speak, is when they use it in regards to gender and sexuality. So they'll say, gender is a social construct because look at all these people who have these conditions like Turner syndrome, or what's that one that Klinefelter syndrome, where they have really messed up chromosomes, and they don't necessarily fall into one category of gender or another. So therefore, we can conclude that gender is false, and that we should all just identify as whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, the problem with that is that you can extend that to anything. So then if there's a man that's born with like one arm, then you should discount the fact that it's normal for people to be born with two arms, which is of course ridiculous, and everyone would reject that.
Of course, yeah. The one counter example that I like to use when I come across people who make this argument is the platypus. Most people, yeah, the platypus is a mammal, but it still lays eggs. So what do we do there? Do we say that part of being a mammal, it means that you don't part of being a mammal does not include giving live birth?
Yeah, I was laughing because I always used to ask people what their opinion of the modern day platypus was, and they never knew what the hell I was talking about.
Yeah, and echidna is the other animal that.
Echidna, yeah, that's right. I actually first heard of an echidna from Sonic the Hedgehog, because Knuckles is an echidna, where he's supposed to be. You can't.
Remember, guys, you are whatever you identify as.
No, I'm not. So I'm the God King of North America then.
Yeah, if that's what you believe you are, then
I
you are.
identify as it. I feel strongly that I am.
All
I
right, then you are.
identify as a trans reptilian echidna.
I identify as a helicopter who throws leftists out of it.
Yeah, you're gonna have the SPLC and the ADL are gonna have a field day with you, man.
Oh God. Well, it's kind of like what you said. What are they gonna do? Call the SPLC? Call the ADL?
They're gonna drag you in front of some sort of human rights tribunal in Tel Aviv and then force you into hard labor.
Oh, guys, Nero says he wants to join.
Yeah, the SPLC is kind of weird to me. The people who they label as hate groups
Hard
is
labor.
staggering.
Oh, guys, Nero says he wants to join.
Nero?
Yeah, the SPLC is kind of weird to me. The people who they label as hate.
Had a
I
bit
think
of an
I brought
echo
this
there.
up. I brought this up in another podcast I was in, but you're familiar. You guys are familiar with the YouTuber Ramsey Paul?
I'm familiar with them. I don't know if Center is.
Well, a while back he made a video. It was a satirical video where he was pretending to be like some like.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Ramsey Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was just talking about how he made a video a while back. How it was a satirical video where he pretended to be like some like black thug, and he had like a fake pistol and he had a hood on, and he was pretending to be all gangsta. And then what the SPLC did was they took a screenshot of his video and then they put it in like their like hate group watch list, and then they portrayed him as like this evil, gun-toting white supremacist gangster. So it just shows you how they're willing to just cherry pick these things to support their narrative.
Yeah, I like Ramsey Paul.
Yeah, he's a big
Greetings,
guy.
Nero. How do you do?
Hey, Nero.
Hey, you guys were talking about white genocide earlier. I just have something to say about that.
We
Okay.
were?
Yeah, you don't think I follow these things?
No, nobody said that.
You were talking about white genocide on this podcast?
Yeah, I thought you guys were for a second.
We were
Not
talking
really.
about like white privilege, but
Okay, but can I still say something about white genocide? Like, regardless of whether or not it's true, there's just something that needs to be said about it. Thing
Alright.
is, you know how Japan feels strongly about their ethnic group and they're strong to protect their culture, and there's even things that leftists wouldn't consider racism because Japanese people have no power in this world whatsoever, but they have no whites allowed restaurants in Japan. And here's the thing. Do you know how brainwashed Japanese people would have to be in order for them to accept immigration policy that eventually will lead towards another ethnic group becoming... I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. An immigration policy that would make the Japanese ethnic group become a minority in their own country, because right now they have an immigration policy that protects the fact that they are the majority of the population, while Europe is falling from that as of now.
well, they're not going to be able to sustain these policies for very much longer because ethnic Japanese people have a very, very low birth rate. I think it's something like 0.8 or 0.9 per couple, which is appalling. I mean, they're giving Germany a run for their money right there. But actually,
I've read articles about this. It's because the Japanese, the young people in Japan have been adopting anti-sex views, like they're not really interested in sex, and to be quite frankly, I have a feeling that feminism...
You could have
I have a
fooled
feeling
me with
that...
all that
Sorry.
weird, perverted anime crap coming out of Japan.
Hey,
Never
Delta, we
mind,
see
it's
your
lies.
face.
Greetings and salutations, Delta.
Hey, Delta.
Green. Hey, so what did everyone decide to do now? Just do a random
We're
hangout?
talking about white privilege. Here's the thing about that. I have a feeling that feminism has something to do with the low birth rates in Japan. Because if you watched Anita Sarkeesian, she was complaining about how some video game called Bayonetta. I actually watched an amazing video about that mercilessly mocked her, but basically she's saying that Bayonetta and advertisements encourage women to get raped, so the government decided to start segregating buses, subways, etc. to prevent rape and molestation. And I
Yeah,
have a
let me
feeling
just.
that the feminist reaction to rape and hentai and stuff like that is what led towards the government segregating the genders, and that has something to do with the low birth rates right now because, well, women are too afraid to get raped now. I'm just messing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
don't,
What? Like haters speak.
What? Is it attack the stock accounts?
no, I just
Nah.
wanted to say, Nero, real quick, that that's an interesting point that you were making, but it's kind of a different topic, because that really doesn't have anything to do with, like the conceptions of white privilege. That's just about their population size.
huh.
However,
I'm just curious if anybody knows how prevalent is feminism in East Asian societies.
That I don't know. I do know
No
that
idea.
I do know that it's growing in Russia. With the femin movement, but
But they're not really taken seriously, though.
Well,
they're
of course
taken
not.
seriously in Russia, but they are taken seriously elsewhere, and they're getting support from elsewhere.
From George Soros.
From George Soros.
Bow down to your shekel overlord. Oh, by the way, greetings, independent workman, whoever you are. I didn't see you there.
I'm assuming it's just a mute.
Funny story about the independent workman. He fooled me, Dresden, and Lewis into thinking he was a Marxist because of this video series called Capitalism 101. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that, Ethan.
Well, his new profile picture is Frederick Engels, so I can tell he's kind of converted. I think Manuel's influenced him.
Yeah, but Ethan has a few tricks up his sleeve as well. But because I'm your friend, Ethan, I'm not going to expose you. But whatever.
Oh, I seen down in the comment section of one of your last videos, Ethan, that the Gaming Patriot had made a sock puppet account of Bernie Sanders.
Bernie.
I can't believe
Sanders!
that. That was hilarious. He said, "You will feel the power of wealth distribution," and you thought that was an actual Bernie Sanders supporter.
Yeah, I actually did. I was like, what the fuck is he doing on my page? On my YouTube.
Well then,
That kid is really.
Start talking. By the way, what's your
Yeah?
thoughts on the concept of male privilege, which is quite frankly stupid, and considering the United States is a country where women get to vote without having to register for selective service. That's
Yeah,
kind of a privilege in itself.
We kind of already covered this, but I guess the new people here can give their thoughts on it.
it's bullshit.
Females have so much privilege. Like, here's one privilege that females have in the United States. If a female were to rape a minor and she leaves prison around the time this person becomes an adult, then she can actually sue her rape victim to pay child support.
Wow.
Women in our society are granted a lot of preference, especially in family courts and in regard to child custody and things like that. But I don't know if I would even call that privilege, because if you look at the reported happiness levels of women over time, women seem to be getting a lot more unhappy. Rates of depression among females has gone up in the last like 30 or 40 years, and rates of suicide are also going up. So
I can blame feminist degeneracy for that, but also some other factors as well. But I still would argue that is a privilege, and I'll tell you why that is a privilege. Can a man rape a woman and then force the woman to pay him child support? You know, free money, and there's no way out of co-opting outside of paying child support without risking going to prison? Because that's also, what about male reproductive rights? Because women have almost complete free access to abortions now.
And women get more custody of children in divorces.
That's
Yeah,
true.
however, guess what? If the male wants a child, fuck him. Because even though he was the one who had the waste minutes of his life, so the woman can finally be pregnant after such a risky chance of actually having it, and then bam, she's like, fuck you! I get to do whatever I want! Holy shit.
I think that's
I support classical feminism, not like the cultural Marxist one that talk about how they want to kill white men and they don't preach
Feminism,
they just preach white genocide.
feminism
Well,
feminism in general is completely useless in most of the world today, except third world countries like Muslim countries. But even then, feminism in the long run is useless because no matter how hard we try to spread Western ideas of equality, solidarity, love your neighbor as yourself, and do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt others, or a sense of morality, no matter how much we try to do that to the Middle East and some Asian countries, there's still going to be what social justice warriors will call patriarchal shitlord governments. So, in the end, feminism is a completely worthless movement right now. And men are the most disadvantaged gender in Western society today. So, if you truly
well,
want,
Ethan.
if you truly want to support equality, basically be an MRA. But then again, I'm pretty sure the alt-right hate the MRA movement as much as the feminist movement.
All right, here's my problem with the men's rights movement. And I'm not gonna be very harsh on them because I know I have a lot of people in my audience who identify as MRAs or MGTOWs or whatever.
Yeah, I'm
But
one of them. I'm an MRA. So.
all right, here's the thing though. MRAs, their hearts are in a good place in advocating for legal rights for men and all, but they seem to have fallen into the trap of accepting the feminist premise that men and women are equal. Men and women are not equal, and we should not treat them as equals. We should have different laws that apply differently to men and women, and that's how it's been throughout pretty much every functional society.
Well,
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's what I would disagree with you on. Because when you say men and women aren't equal in some sense, I would agree. In terms of, like, strength, males are more strong. That's improper grammar. But males tend to be far stronger than most women are. Statistically speaking, that's the case. And that's due to things like hormones, genes, etc. Now, feminists would like to act like these inherent distinctions between male and female biology doesn't exist. In fact, it creates some genderless society in the future, which is fucking retarded. But the thing is, like,
Well, the differences strike deeper than that, Nero. There's more differences than.
I want to think of masculinity and femininity as like a hierarchy. There are flaws in masculinity and flaws in femininity. And femininity, masculinity, and also does the same thing vice versa. You can't have a society that is masculine and feminine. You have to have it's not a hierarchy, it's more of a cooperation between the two sexes and the characteristics that come about as a result of hormones, genetics, upbringings, etc. That's just me, though.
Alright, Dustin,
Just
you
you,
wanted to
mate.
say something?
Yeah, I said to be fair, as a nationalist or even like a fascist, all feminism is garbage and it should all be vanquished from the earth.
I agree. Even first wave feminism has strong ties to Marxists.
I take
It'll only
the
be relevant in the Middle East.
I take the third position as thing. It's like it's all bad. We need to get best thing we can do is go back to patriarchy, like how Franco did.
Here's a fun. The women's suffrage movement. You know which group actually heavily opposed the right to vote?
I really can't hear you, Nero. You're like
Women.
your microphone's going.
Let me
crazy.
guess, Nero. Women.
Women, yes. Women were the ones who were the biggest opponents of women's suffrage. In fact, 60% of all women during the time of women's suffrage didn't want to vote. They didn't give a shit. They didn't advocate for giving men and women equal rights in that regard. They cared more about spending time at home for it. That's a proven statistic that women were the biggest opponents of the women's suffrage movement. Interesting how it all worked.
Yeah. So, Peter, you want to say something?
Well, yeah. And I was trying to say that we should define privilege actually before we talked about that. But I guess we kind of already moved past it. Now we're talking about women's suffrage, so maybe it's irrelevant.
I
Um,
want to talk about human rights.
human
Since
rights. Well,
okay,
hold on a second.
here's my opinion on rights. I'm going to
No,
quote
no,
George Carlin from memory. We don't have rights in our society because here's the
we're
thing,
not.
for example, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is a right supposedly guaranteed in the First Amendment, but here's the thing. All it takes to get rid of the First Amendment is a two-thirds majority in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. Congress in general. So rights are not rights if they can be taken away in just one swoop. We don't have rights. No country in the world has rights. We instead have what we would call temporary privileges, where you have privileges, you have a certain action that you can perform and do, and you won't get in trouble for it, at least not by the government. Some form
Yeah,
of hierarchy is guaranteed to you.
Hey Nero, do you want to move closer to your mic? It sounds like
yeah, I can't hear you.
Fuck. Okay, hold on a second.
Well, while he's fixing that up, I wanted to say that finish what I was going to say that he's right when he says that so going off of what you said, Nero, I would assume that you were somebody who doesn't believe in natural law. That is that there are inherent rights, and I'm certainly somebody who doesn't either. That
But like,
you
yeah, I mean, like, can you demonstrate what rights turtles have?
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I believe rights are earned, and yes, if someone was willing to die for it, was willing to risk their life, and was willing to even protest and gain government attraction or even democratic attraction, then let's say, for example, someone has the right to own slaves. They have the right to do that if they earned that right. I earned my rights. Delta earned his rights.
Earned.
Ethan earned his rights. We earn our rights in our society. And
I
that's
earned.
just a fact. Sorry about that.
And the other thing was that the the idea that there are certain rights that are innate to you has kind of demagoguery that's risen up around the subject, has given rise to this this culture of freedom obsession. But people don't consider what freedoms that they actually want and which ones they don't want, or don't want for others as well as themselves. Yeah, that's the question that's never asked when people talk about freedom, especially in America. You just hear people like, "We want freedom. We want our freedom. Break our chains." You know, all those Black Lives Matter protesters always have those frickin' stupid signs that say,
we
you know,
have
like,
nothing
"We've got
to
nothing to
do with our
lose but our chains." What were you gonna say, Vlad?
Oh no, continue. I was just being silly.
Yeah.
And yeah, they have a great degree of freedom comparatively to the rest of the world, but they don't. People that generally make these kind of noises will rarely ever tell you what additional freedoms they want. They just say they want freedom as an abstract. And I think if you're gonna demand it, you have to be specific as to what you actually want, because it doesn't say anything to say I want freedom. Well, freedom to do what?
I mean, there's like two different kinds of freedom. There's positive freedom and there's negative freedom.
Wait, hold on. There's what?
There's positive freedom and negative freedom. Positive freedom, correct me if I'm wrong, is freedom to. Negative freedom means freedom from. So if you have a negative freedom in something, that means you're free from, for example, the state. And Caps, for example, want negative freedom from the state. And that's what we need to draw the line at. What form of liberty do you actually want? Do you want freedom from the government? Do you want freedom from the police? Do you want freedom from police? I mean, what the fuck do you want?
Of course, and you wouldn't want, say, like a murderer to have the freedom to murder, and everyone would agree that that is ridiculous. So how much should you roll that back?
In regards to this conversation about rights and freedoms, I actually do believe that rights exist in a loose sense of the word, because the enforcement of rights, it all boils down to the use of force. You cannot have rights unless there's some sort of force that can defend those rights. For example, property rights. Property rights mean nothing if anybody can just come along and deprive you of your car or your money, your house, which is why I believe strongly in the right to bear arms. I think that a society where people are armed is the most free society and where people have the most rights, because the ability to defend one's rights is placed in the hands of individuals who bear arms, not in the hands of a police force or a government, because the government and police force are, they're subject to change and corruption, whereas an individual can defend their rights for themselves.
The police can protect you from murderers and burglars, but who protects you from the police?
Well, actually, the police have no
Who watches the Watchmen?
protect you from being raped and murdered. There's a really good
I have a
video
question
by,
for everyone in here after Tom's done speaking.
Oh, wait, just one more point. There's a YouTuber by the name of Justicar, and he made an excellent video a month ago where he uses a bunch of court cases to demonstrate that the police have no right to protect you. You could be getting raped right in front of the cops. They could just sit there and smoke a cigarette, wait for the rapist to be done, and then arrest them. Like they really have no right to protect, no obligation to protect you at all.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to the Justicar. He made some very good points. I mean, the police. I mean, if you truly wanted a police force to protect you from rape, then you would have to go all Big Brother ape shit on the people, and no one wants to affect. Most people, even down here in the South, if you ask them what we should do with the NSA, you're going to see Ron Paul fanboys say, "Oh, we should abolish the NSA completely." So I highly doubt people will want to actually welcome a police or law enforcement that actually serves and literally protect the people. Because if you literally want to protect the people, you have to be batshit insane.
I have a question for everyone. Let's say if a cop is being an asshole, like he's just being a dick, and there's a chance that this cop could potentially harm you as well, just like every other criminal. Do you believe that every citizen should have the right to shoot him?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
It depends.
Because, I mean, like, we, here in the United States, and I'm pretty sure some other countries like Canada has adopted this too, but we have this thing where if you committed a crime, you could get away with it until the police have a reason to believe that you committed the crime, a reasonable cause, or they have a warrant to crack down on you, like a warrant from a jurisdiction. So, yeah, when a cop is abusing, like they're going way aboard, like they're persecuting people for no reason, they're hurting someone for no reason, they're going out of line, or they're searching someone's house without a warrant, or without reasonable belief, then I feel that people have the right to protect themselves, because the police are violating constitutional rights, so the people have the right to protect themselves from unreasonable search and seizures.
Okay, in theory, though, that may be true. You may have the right to defend yourself against a cop who's not adhering to proper procedure, but try arguing that in court. I mean, if there's a dead cop and there's blood on your hands, try arguing to a judge that, oh yeah, the cop was trying to get into my house without my consent, so I shot him. Like you're going to be behind bars pretty quickly, buddy.
But Vlad, okay, I know I'm not a big fan of gangster culture and whatnot, but are you familiar with Tupac? What he did was, in self-defense, he killed 2 police officers, and you know what? He walked away free because he was able to demonstrate in court that there were police officers who were trying to abuse their authority, they were trying to conduct unreasonable search and seizure, and Tupac was able to flee from being convicted for killing 2 police officers. There's also state laws that are being passed in the United States right now that guarantee citizens the right to defend themselves against the police under very strict circumstances. So,
largely decided by. Hold on a second, Nero. Those cases are largely decided by the magistrate, the presiding judge, and so forth. Like, it depends what their opinions are, largely, about how they're going to rule in that case.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, I mean, courts can enforce whatever law they want.
Well, no matter how it turns out, it is a complicated issue.
So you don't have
One thing
any.
I would do is if, like, let's say a cop tries to brutalize me while I'm in my car or something, I'll probably just have a camera to show proof.
Yeah, live stream it on YouTube.
Like, stream it on YouTube.
Now, if a cop kicks down the door, shooting up the place without a warrant or anything like that, then yes, that should be considered an act of tyranny. Even if
I mean, I believe we need more stricter reforms over the police, but I don't think they should be completely controlled to the point where they can't even do anything. Because here's the thing: when you actually talk to people like Black Lives Matter and you talk to anarchists like Black Cat, they advocate for either no police whatsoever, or they do want a police, but they want to make it so that the police literally cannot enforce the law. So
or they just
I would
Or
like
they
to I would like to have Love Life Anarchy on for this discussion because he actually is an anarchist, so he could probably argue.
well, he's an
He's on
anarcho-capitalist.
yeah, and ANCAPs want to privatize the police. There's many different forms of that. Like one idea is that there be insurance companies, and they'll be buying, sell.
Privatization of the. Nero, your microphone's going crazy.
No, it's not me. It's the background noise of people like the independent work, man. Sorry about that. Okay, he just left, so you can now hear me better.
I
We
can
should
hear you much better.
Vlad, we should do whatever we did last time, and that is when we're not speaking, we should mute our mics so we don't have background noise affecting the way people speak.
Yeah, that's a good idea, but I've already been doing it, so I'm way ahead of the curve here.
Okay.
Since we're talking about crime.
Like, what about racial profiling? This is a very sensitive topic, but the fact of the matter is, if you have one ethnic group that is committing most crimes in the United States, and there's such a low minority in the population, then would it really be much of racial profiling to assume that people who act like they belong in a culture that literally encourages criminal behavior, which is gangster culture, do you really think it's unsafe to, profile places like ghettos?
Well, actually,
I want to attack
really
the
in favor
root
of
of that.
racial profiling because it holds groups of people responsible for their actions. If there's one group of people who have a culture of criminality, they hide their criminals, they don't talk to the police, and they actively support violent gangs, then yeah, absolutely, the police should crack down on them more than other groups of people. That's just rational.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
it's not really racial profiling if he's actually looking at the right place where it mostly happens, like you said, the ghetto.
I'm actually making a rap song. It's a parody of how awful the police are to blacks and stuff like that. And here's what's going to be the final message in the video. If you don't want to be profiled, then stop committing crimes and encouraging a culture, including a fragment of the music industry that receives millions and millions of dollars a year, a culture that literally encourages rape, selling drugs, drug abuse, even the evil picture. If you don't want to be profiled, then stop encouraging a culture that is literally even creating negative stereotypes about your race.
But Nero, that's racist because these people, they come from neighborhoods where they have no opportunities, and the only way they can make money is to resort to crime and violence.
This
is actually-
whitey main sheet.
Yeah,
I got a
that's what
question.
I understand.
I got a question for everyone.
Okay.
What do you all think of the death penalty?
And a lot of people, it all depends on how big the issue is.
The thing is, I'm against the death penalty when it comes to minor crimes like rape, but when it comes to there's a lot of people on death row who are innocent of their crimes just for a single murder. So in cases of maybe less than 4 murders, no one should receive the death penalty. But when it's above 5, like a school shooting, and the evidence for the murder is so overwhelming, or in the case of someone who's extremely perverted to the point where they are a predatory sex offender like Jimmy Savile, then they should be executed. executed for the protection of society. That's just my personal
I
view.
don't think it takes more than one killing to reach that conclusion. I don't think you have to be a serial killer to warrant the death penalty. It would just depend, of course, on the nuances of the case. Like, was it cold-blooded murder? Did you just think, I hate that guy, I'm going to go kill him? If so,
But like,
execute him, as long as the evidence is airtight. You know.
but
Yeah.
like here's an example. Like, however, I would argue this: wouldn't death actually be more of an escape from a punishment? Because if I had to choose between getting executed by gun or a shot and going to prison where every day I'm fed crappy food, I have to deal with psychopathic police.
Yeah. See,
I have to deal with gangs. I have to get raped in.
I get your point, Nero, but that's I'm not talking about punishment. I'm just talking about solving the problem. So you're looking at it from, we want to punish these people, and that's how most people look at it. I don't look at it from that angle, and the reason I don't look at it from that angle is because then it encourages prisons, and then you just suck off taxpayer dollars, and we just start incarcerating people willy-nilly. I'm just looking at somebody is damaging the fabric of society. Let's put an end to it, right? And then you don't have to pay any prison costs. No taxpayers get, except for maybe for the bullets for the gun. And
I agree with you on that. I was actually, for the longest time, I was against the death penalty because I look at it this way: if I can understand killing somebody in like the heat of the moment or in a crime of passion, like you come home, you see your wife sleeping with somebody else, and you kill them, like that's. It's morally objectionable, don't get me wrong, but I can understand it. But it's quite another thing to have somebody in custody in cold blood just to say, oh yeah, we're going to kill you. But I also understand that the death penalty has an incredible deterrent effect. There's a lot of research to back this up, and in many countries that have the death penalty, you see a lot less crime.
A lot less. Look at Saudi Arabia.
Of course, yeah.
Well, besides terrorism.
Yeah, and another thing, like, it costs a lot of money to have somebody behind bars. I think it's like $100,000 a year. Bullets and rope are pretty cheap, so I'd be willing to, afford the cost for a bullet to get people like.
Just go KGB and send them all to Gulag.
The reason why I was asking this question was because, since we got presidential debates going on right now, I was watching some old school presidential debates. I was watching the presidential debate of 1988 between George Bush Sr. and Michael Dukakis. And one of the people who were asking the questions, they asked Michael Dukakis, what would he do if someone raped and murdered his wife? And he said, well, I don't really believe in the death penalty and this and that. And then a lot of people were just like, whoa, don't dog your wife like that. You guys ever heard of Michael Dukakis?
Oh yeah.
But here's a problem with that.
Debates.
Here's a problem with that. See, here's my problem with people who are like, oh,
I think I need a pencil.
Jesus Christ, people, mute your mics when they're speaking.
Okay, go log into your mic.
Thank God. Okay, I'm not a big fan of using emotions. Fuck you, independent work, man. Fuck you. Okay, now, I'm not a big fan of using emotion to justify policies because you have to look at this from a rational viewpoint. I mean, the argument for slavery back before the Civil War was based on emotions, not facts and reasoning.
Somebody's echoing.
It's the independent work, man.
Just mute him.
No, he keeps unmuting himself. Fuck off. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I want to interject just real quick, Nero. I like to think that me and Vlad were making a fairly rational point that it wasn't about emotion, because punishment is typically an appeal to emotion, an appeal to ethics, right? And the ethics part is fine, but the appeal to emotion usually isn't. So we were just saying that it's much more cost efficient and much less hard on the population if you simply execute them. And I think that was just our argument.
I would rather have my money go to ropes and bullets than to go to fucking going to jail for a long time and having to eat food.
Well, we don't use rope and bullets, I don't think. Well, we do occasionally, but I think it's mostly lethal injection these days.
I read somewhere that Utah actually brought back the firing squad.
Yeah, they did. But like, I think like
we should bring right-wing death squads.
I think
Sign me up.
Squads.
I think most executions nowadays are through lethal injection, at least in the U.S.
Yeah, in the U.S. they are.
In the old days, it was the electric chair.
I think
Okay,
Texas still
now-
uses the electric chair.
What?
Yeah.
Now, men's rights movement activists like to say, like, rape in prison. I think it's a terrible thing. I think we need to solve that crisis because it's retarded that for robbing a bank, you should be raped in prison every day for 10 years or so. Okay, that needs to change, but men's rights activists like to say, oh, it's cruel and unusual punishment. But here's the thing. Rape is not a part of a punishment that's inflicted by the government. It's not cruel and unusual punishment, just like torture. Justice Scalia brought this up when he said that torture in of itself is not cruel and unusual punishment, because whatever people do to you that is not directly inflicted by the government or the judge or whatnot is not constitute something that would require constitutional scrutiny. So I think that needs to go. I do think we should have something like, imagine we have prisons in Northern Europe that are like paradises when you're in them, but when you're outside them, you should do hard brutal labor for what you did or something to contribute to society. I think we should have that, and we need to stop prison rape, but I don't really see why men's rights activists like to say
Well, if you're a rape.
prison rape is not unconstitutional because it's not inflicted by the government unless a police officer is doing it.
Well,
Well,
no, man.
neither
I
is
mean,
getting
like,
stabbed in the back with a shiv when you're in prison either.
well, if you, well, I don't know, man. If you rape a little child, like if you're a child rapist, a part of me feels like you should be forced to get a sex change and then thrown in regular population.
Yeah, I think most of the people, well, I mean, I've never been to prison, so take this with a grain of salt, but I think that most people who get raped in prison are child molesters and rapists themselves. Like,
Yeah, they deserve to get raped.
Jared Fogle!
Colombian drug lords aren't getting raped in prison.
yeah.
But I know. And another question I want to ask is, and it goes back to the death penalty thing. Like, you guys ever heard of Willie Horton?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you go back to the 1988 presidential debate, there was this ad where the Democrat nominee, Michael Dukakis, apparently there was this murderer named Willie Horton. He gave Willie Horton weekend passes. You know what weekend passes are?
They go,
Oh, no, I'm not familiar with that.
Pass.
It's where like you get out of prison for good behavior for the weekend or something like that. And apparently Michael Dukakis somehow let a murderer get a weekend pass, and he went and broke more laws.
Wow.
Yeah, that's being too soft on the criminal, I feel as though.
I know. Well, I know, but could I just recommend for everybody here to go back and to see if you can see an old clip of the 1988 presidential debate? If you could, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah. Not that I'm saying I'm a huge fan of Bush Sr., but still, like, I just recommend everybody goes back and look at it and see how it was done.
Yeah, it's a much different time. It's interesting to see, like back then the debates were much more like actual debates rather than glorified interviews like they are today.
I remember, I also was watching a GOP debate in 1980 between Ronald Reagan and Bush Sr., and it wasn't like, like the Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, John Kasich thing we got right now.
Yeah, one of my favorite presidential debates was the 1960 debate between Nixon and Kennedy, because that was the first presidential debate ever, I believe. And it's interesting because Nixon, like, I don't know if you've ever seen clips of Nixon speak. I'm sure you have, but he's not exactly a charismatic. His body language is not very charismatic. He sweats
He's very
a lot.
coarse and boorish, and
Yeah, but the
his
interesting thing,
administration was
though,
constantly.
I know.
the interesting thing is that the people who watched the debate on television between Kennedy and Nixon, they all thought that Kennedy won because Kennedy is a very, he's a good-looking guy. He speaks eloquently. Whereas Nixon, everybody who listened to the debate on the radio thought that Nixon won because of his his strong rhetoric. So that, I mean, little things like that just goes to show how people can be manipulated by body language and
It's all about optics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wait a minute, you guys
people
are
can come away
fans
with
of the
a
Bush
completely different conclusion about a debate, whether they watch it live, whether they read a transcript, or whether they listen to it on the radio. So I think
Wait,
that's,
you guys support the Bushes?
I don't.
What?
No.
No, I was just talking about the 1988 presidential election, and about
Why do you ask?
there were certain topics that were brought up during those debates and those commercial ads back then that I was just asking about. The questions I was asking was brought up because I was looking at some old debates. I was looking at the 1988 one. But yeah, I recommend you see the Dukakis tank scene. You'll laugh your ass off.
Hey, Censor.
Yeah.
Is Arini still gonna pop by?
Nah, not today,
Yeah.
because he says he got an invite from some other dude called Brother John.
Yeah, never heard of
Is
it.
that the Brazilian dude?
No, that's
No, Arini is the other guy, the reactionary.
Oh yeah. I forgot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if we created like another kind of live stream where you got classical liberals and alt-right people alike into one live stream, because these two groups of people, we're the biggest enemies of social justice warriors, but because of classical liberals like meritocrats like Sargon of Akkad, and then you have alt-right people, there's a whole bunch of people.
I don't think you could call Sargon of Akkad a classical liberal. Doesn't he support Bernie Sanders?
No, he supports Hillary Clinton.
Oh,
No, he
my
doesn't.
God.
no,
No, I watched a video where he said he supports
You're
Bernie
a
Sanders.
pathological liar, homeboy. What the fuck is wrong with you? You want my fruit by the foot? Okay, I'm just messing up.
simmer down, Nero.
What the
Anyways,
fuck?
Okay, but like, he doesn't support Hillary Clinton. When the fuck has he ever supported
On
Hillary Clinton?
Twitter.
Yeah. If you agree with one thing Hillary Clinton says, you're a left-wing evil rapist. Good job, Ethan.
I
I
almost
never
can't.
said that though. I never said that. I said that he supported Hillary Clinton because he says that it's a good thing. He's better than Trump and them.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Trump out of everyone else,
I
even
like
though
to
I'm
see
not a
his
fan of
source for
Trump.
I like to see a source for that tweet, because I've said similar things just to rustle some jimmies, even though I disagree with it. I say things I disagree with just to get people angry. So
Really, Soldier, if you support Trump, I thought you would support Kasich. He's from Ohio. He seems to be very popular.
No way. Even during the ballot, when I was able to go vote for who the GOP nominee could be, I didn't vote for Kasich. And plus, Southern Ohio is more pro-Trump compared to the rest of Ohio.
Seal, are you from Ohio?
Yeah, I'm from Southwest Ohio.
Hey, so am I. Oh, a fellow Ohioan.
You from the
Pleasure to make
Dayton?
your acquaintance.
Yeah, you from the Dayton area?
Pretty close to Dayton, not too far.
Yeah. I'm between Dayton and Cincinnati, Warren County.
Ah, yeah, your accent's slightly different, so I figured you were a bit farther away.
Yeah, because a lot of people here are from Kentucky, and I just kind of like, my voice is like messed up, you know.
Well, not really. I mean, most people here I thought I was from Europe or something when I asked where they thought I was from.
Oh no, it's just like I kind of caught up. Like sometimes it sounds like I'm from Kentucky because like the town I live in, it's like flooded with people from Kentucky.
Yeah. But let's not get too off topic here. I actually wanted to address what you said, Nero. That's a really great idea, and that's something that I said before, actually. I think like several times. I kind of was worried that I'd be repeating myself too much. I just think it'd be a great idea to have one of these kind of live streams, but maybe with just 2 or 3 of us, maybe 4, and then the rest of the people we could bring in would be classical liberals and maybe center-left people, center-right people, and just get their opinions on it and these kind of things. People that sort of like half agree with the stuff that we say.
Yeah, the problem with having debates on Google Hangouts, if they involve more than like 2 or 3 people, is that it just divulges into a huge shouting match, and you can't really get in a word edgewise.
Well, that's why I said like only 4 to 3 people. I think
Maybe
that'd be
just-
manageable.
Maybe
Peter,
just
Did you happen to join one of those hangouts on Millennial Woes' channel at the end of last year?
No, I never actually did. I watched, I think all of them though.
Yeah, I was on one pretty briefly, but
Oh.
it just kind of shows what happens if you have too many people on who can't agree with each other, because everyone just ends up shouting over, and there's really no comprehensive thread to the.
Yeah, hold on. Here, are you trying to block the independent workman?
He keeps muting me, so I'm going to block him until he stops.
Why don't you two just stop muting each other, and then you can mute yourself when you're not speaking like everybody else? Why don't you do that?
Yeah, I actually have been doing that, but here's the thing. The independent workman doesn't do the same thing, so I'm just gonna block him, so...
Hold on. Hey, independent workman, turn your microphone on. Let's get all this straightened out. Independent workman. Earth to independent workman. Are you there?
don't bother, dude. Just keep going.
I
Yeah,
think he's
just
smoking
ignore
weed with owls, judging by his avatar.
Alrighty. Never mind then. As you were saying, Vlad.
Oh, I'm done. My point.
Oh,
Okay, one thing I would see good when it comes to a classical liberal and... actually, I kind of want to move back to where you said that Sargon wouldn't be much of a classical liberal, because he self-identified as a classical liberal several times. That is why Sargon... not Sargon. A stalker that we will not mention made like 5 videos about how Sargon of Akkad is an evil right-winger.
Yeah, well, I think Sargon of Akkad self-identifies as being left-wing, whereas classical liberalism is generally accepted to be a right-wing ideology.
yeah, he's definitely center right, rather than center left on most issues.
So
Anyway.
I really wouldn't see why he would support Hillary Clinton. Actually, I looked at his Sargon of Akkad's YouTube channel recently.
Yeah,
Oh, he
it
said she was
seems like
evil.
he doesn't like support Hillary. It seems like he probably just, I think he probably just like agrees with her on some things. But there was a post I once saw where he said something about how she's better than Trump.
Really?
Yeah, however, you could have misread that, or I would like a screenshot of that tweet. And by the way, I looked at his liked videos today on YouTube, and he actually liked a video by Red Pill Philosophy where he called Hillary Clinton an evil feminist. And I would why Sargon would actually support Hillary Clinton, much less against Donald Trump, because Hillary Clinton is a feminist. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And besides, she's one of the most corrupt politicians of all time.
Yeah. She in fact she was freaking out about that movie that came out a couple of months ago about that terrorist attack at
The Benghazi incident?
Yeah, there's a movie about Benghazi. I haven't
I
seen
saw
it.
that movie, 13 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was freaking out because she was worried that the film would depict her in an evil way.
Did it?
Like that hasn't happened before.
Wait a minute, Ethan, did 13 Hours even bring up or show depictions of Hillary Clinton?
No, it didn't even mention Hillary. It was just the guys. It was just the guys who were involved in the whole Benghazi thing. But it never said anything about Hillary. What a stupid bitch.
Why would Hillary be worried about that? Because it's pretty clear her husband was confronted and banging other women, and she had nothing to say about it. I mean, like, seriously.
I get the impression that Bill and Hillary do not have a very close relationship.
Probably not. They probably sleep in their beds.
Especially after that incident back in the 90s.
Monica Lewinsky?
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure that Bill Clinton and Nancy Pelosi do things behind closed doors, but Nancy Pelosi's a witch, so...
I was gonna stay in the house.
that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good impression.
I'll tell you, Tom. I thank you, Tom, right now. I thank you for that compliment.
See, I could never do Clinton. I was always too hard for me to do.
Yeah, like everybody always likes it when I do Clinton because people always ask me to do Bill Clinton and George Bush Sr.
Do George Bush Sr.
Read my lips. No one will be a failure. Got it, son?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I like this guy.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
You win the internet today, sir.
Why, thank you.
Nancy Pelosi.
Mr. Bush, why did you issue that stupid assault weapons ban back in '89? That's not very Republican of you.
Well, as you know, I'm not like Ronald Reagan. I'm a little more moderate. So yes, I figured this was a necessity. But I guess looking back now, it was probably wrong.
Well, that's why you lost to Clinton in '92.
Even though he was for it too.
Well,
read my lips. He was for it too.
Welcome to the Seal and Tom talk show.
At least gas was cheaper when I was in office.
Hey, Tom, I have some questions for George Soros.
George Soros.
Yeah. How Jewish are you?
14.88.
I am more Jewish than you can ever imagine. 14.88. Nobody can out-Jew the Soros.
And why did you collaborate with the Nazis?
They paid the most. The time has come to destroy the black race. It was all part of our plan to establish the nation of Israel.
Mr. Soros' throat is getting a little bit tired, guys.
Yeah,
go bring sleep. Do you have Bernie Sanders with you?
Water. Yes, he has to go drink the blood of white children in this chalice. So
You got Bernie Sanders with you? We have questions for him.
I think George Soros ate Bernie Sanders. I'm afraid.
No, Bernie Sanders, I'm right here. Yes, I packed my underwear.
Hey, Tom. So, like, you saw my Pinochet video, right?
Yeah, that was well done.
Yeah. So, like, what else could you consider a failure under the Allende regime?
Everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah, almost everything.
Well, I mean,
yeah, a bunch of leftist morons were also talking about how, how supposedly Pinochet increased the poverty rate, but the thing is, it was actually much higher under Allende, and the thing is, there's always different ways for you to measure poverty. Like I said, a lower class person living in the U.S. or in Canada or in Australia or any of these Western countries could gain more access to food than a middle class person living in, say, Venezuela.
Well, even if let's say poverty was higher under Pinochet, you could still say that unemployment was lower under Pinochet.
Well, actually, they say that unemployment was supposedly higher under Pinochet, but that's not Pinochet's fault, though. That's the people's fault themselves.
Well, I mean, just to give you an idea of how bad Allende screwed up Chile, he increased inflation by something like 500%. And by the time Augusto Pinochet took office, the inflation was decreased pretty much overnight, which just goes to show how incompetent he was.
Exactly, because
his mistakes could just be fixed overnight.
Yeah, that's why I always say that democratic socialism is an oxymoron, because the thing is, if you elect a guy and he just starts democratically just taking away all your property rights, even though I don't know how that's democratic, and like the thing is, there's either going to be resistance, or it's probably going to turn into a dictatorship. There has been many times where many democratic socialist governments have turned into dictatorships.
Yeah.
The funny thing is Pinochet was actually made enemies with the other dictatorships.
Two things. Number one, when people on the left, especially social justice warriors, say, I mean, even ANCOMs are guilty of this. They're like, oh, we favor democracy. We even favor grassroots democracy, direct democracy. But do they really support majority rule, or even going as far as to say that there should only be laws that a consensus of the population favors? No, because if there's a law that goes against their social justice scrutiny, they're going to want to get rid of that through bureaucracy. Like, for example, are you familiar with sodomy laws?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Those laws, I disagree with them. I think they're retarded. I think it's stupid to prevent adults from having consensual sex. I think it's retarded. However, the people who made those laws were democratically elected. And the people in the 13 states that had it clearly were not big fans of homosexuality. Many other states were. In fact, a month upon versus Texas, gay marriage legalized in one state. Yes, and did social justice warriors or anarcho-syndicalists favor democracy then? No. I've seen anarchists, ANCOMs and whatnot, they were cheering on the Supreme Court decision. They're cheering on a unelected group of people to change the law in their favor, yet they turn around and say, we support majority rule and we hate bureaucracy. That is hypocrisy and intellectual dishonesty.
Yeah, most ANCOM oxymoron idiots like the ANCOMs and most other like leftist anarchists, they are known for like using the government to censor people, even though they hate the government.
I don't know how you can say you're against government, but say you're for social justice and wealth redistribution, because you're not going to be able to enforce those things without government. You can't enforce them without government, unless if you go all mob rule, unless you go all mafia.
Yeah.
Oh, is this a gaming patriot? How do you do?
Like, what would I ask anarchists this question, for example? What if a commune in your ANCOM society decided to bring back the death penalty? What if they decided to legalize pedophilia? What if they did all this stuff that you people are against? And they're like, oh, we're going to start a revolution with against a commune. I'm like, what? So communes are going to crack down on this? Wouldn't that be bureaucracy? Aren't you cracking down on individual autonomous democracies who disagree with some of their policies? That's kind of
just in regards to the implementing social democracy and its failures, apart from the challenges involved in actually implementing social democracy, such as like nationalizing industry and regulating industry and things like that, another problem with these kinds of governments is that once they become implemented, all the people who have any sort of intellectual capital or monetary capital, they tend to, pack up and leave. You see this in Chile in the 1970s during Allende. You see this after Castro took power in Cuba. You see this in Rhodesia and South Africa and all these other countries. Once these leftist social democracies are implemented, people just start to leave. You have these enormous brain drains, and that contributes to the collapse of the society just as much as the idiotic socialist policies that these dictators want to implement.
Oh,
that's a really good point. And I wanted to add that I love this line from H.L. Mencken, if any of you are familiar with him, where he said that democracy is running the circus from the monkey cage, and I think that's a perfect way of summing it up.
Yeah. Or as the famous banner on TRS says, democracy is an interracial porno.
Okay, but Tom, you see, you failed to acknowledge the American imperialism and all the evil sanctions and blockades that prevent these socialist countries from trading, and that's what collapses them. It's not Venezuela's policies that causes their poverty. It's American imperialism.
See, the problem with that argument is that, like, let's say if they can't trade with the United States, they could trade with someone else. Plus, not to mention, like, not being able to trade with the U.S. is not going to cause a complete economic collapse in your country. It's not really going to impact anything.
are we like the trade gods of the world? Like, oh my God, if we can't trade with the United States, we will crumble. Oh my God, we must trade with the United States.
Well, if that wasn't the case, though, if the United States did not have a major influence over global trade, then why would China be so dependent on us? Let's say we stop trading with China altogether. They would have no need to do the mass production that gives them all their GDP. Sure, we owe tremendous amounts of debt to them, but some countries are dependent on the fact that we want their shit. That's just
And
a fact.
plus, all trade is
No doubt.
capitalism. All trade is free trade and all that kind of stuff.
Oh
That's
my
all
God,
Free
Ethan!
trade.
Ethan,
Free trade is.
Ethan, I'm gonna work on that video. Response to that video. I'm tired of this nonsense of people defining capitalism as, oh, it's just voluntary exchange. Okay, so was the Soviet Union capitalist? Because even though they forbade trade to a certain degree, people still would trade a pear for an apple. That does not make it a capitalist system. Capitalism is an economic system that favors property rights over state regulation and state property. That's all capitalism is. It's private ownership of the means of production. Nothing more, nothing less. So why are you defining capitalism as voluntary exchange of goods and services when there are other systems that allow for trade and even free trade, like mercantilism, that doesn't have to revolve around that? Capitalism.
I just want to make a quick point. Going back to this discussion about how leftists say that the reasons why these social democracies failed was because the United States and the CIA and Richard Nixon were all united against them.
Point to bro.
The funny thing about this argument is that when they make these when they say this stuff, they're actually implicitly acknowledging the superiority of capitalism. Because how did the United States get so powerful in the first place? Capitalism. So, I mean, the fact that countries like the U.S. can destabilize these socialist democracies, it just goes to show how powerful and how superior capitalism is compared to knuckle-dragging collectivization.
This goes for pretty much all of the major civilizations throughout world history. So it was the same with the British Empire. It was the same with the Roman Empire. It was because of the mass network of trade and the huge influx of capital that was going into their cities that made them so self-sustainable for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look at a country, look at socialist Argentina. They had almost complete autarky, which is the absence of trade with any other countries, and they collapsed because you can't have, you have to have trade.
No, they just elect.
Okay, guys, what about the definition of capitalism? I know it's kind of trivial. However, what's your definition of capitalism?
Well, yeah, it's pretty much along the lines of what you described. I think what Ethan was describing really wasn't exactly capitalism. It was more just like a barter system.
Can I describe my vision?
Yeah.
To me, capitalism is an economic ideology based on the principles of free market and individualism.
Yeah, but capitalism can be regulated. I mean, if you really think about, it depends on how much regulation, but
probably depending on the occasion.
I'm gonna bring up for example, let's say that private property was allowed to roam free. However, let's say the government did something like what the Nazis did. What if the government said, okay, you big factories that employ thousands of people, why don't you give your people a break and let them have break, like a lunch break? And you know what? How about you also install a swimming pool in your factory? That's what the Nazis did. They forced factory owners to put swimming pools in their factories. Would you consider that socialist regulation, or would you think okay, capitalism, do what you want, but you should give your workers some breaks here and there, free time?
Yeah, I generally agree with Soldrift's definition of capitalism, but to simplify it even further, I would go with Ayn Rand's definition, which was capitalism is just it's an economic platform that recognizes the private ownership of property.
Why the fuck did you mute me?
Because of the background noise, it's kind of hard to make hard to hear people.
I don't think that's Delta.
Definitely ain't me.
Yeah, I'm outside right now, just taking a little break.
I think it is you, Delta.
Because I'm outside, faggot.
Okay. I'm just
By
saying
the
that.
way, Delta, faggot is spelled with a lowercase f, not a capital F. You moron.
Yeah. Well, anyways.
Says the faggot, LMAO child.
Says the one who
Good,
spells
you
faggot.
two are like
That's a
12-year-olds.
hypocrite. That's the
Oh,
hypocrite.
you're gonna spell. I'm gonna tell you how to spell, because I'm an asshole.
Anyways.
Yeah, so-
Soldier's mad. Shut up, Nero.
Now, what I wanted to say is that all of you have been debating the definition of capitalism. I'm kind of surprised that we're debating the definition of capitalism.
I'd say
No, just 1 second. I just want to say that I don't understand why there's a need to redefine it. It's very established what it is. It's any any country that has trade and industry that are controlled by individuals rather than the state. That's
Private
capitalism.
Yeah.
Well, the
Well,
problem
that
is that
makes
communists will make capitalism anything that's not their ideology. Even if it's like a third positionist country like Spain, where there's some private property, them it's still capitalist, no matter what.
Of course, but we're not talking about we're not
nonsense.
talking about ideological manipulation of the definition, but the traditional definition itself.
Yeah, the traditional definition, fascist countries weren't capitalist.
Cole, you wanted to say something though?
Yeah, but there's a difference.
I'd like to say that capitalism is when you have a bunch of businesses, big, small, and large, competing in a free market to create innovation at lower cost by trying to constantly outdo each other. That's not what's going on right now. It's corporationism. Corporatism. Yeah. Thanks, Nero, for telling me that back in the day.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah, I pretty much agree.
The corporatism is more of the state. The state has more power over the corporations or whatever.
Well, the state and the corporations work together due to the fact that regulation favors the big businesses.
I'm gonna rip off Undoomed and say this. Hey, moron! Yeah, fucking moron! You're forgetting this fact right here, that there are different forms of corporatism. There are many different forms of corporatism. There's one that came from Catholic theology known as distributism, where you have gigantic-ass co-op, and then you also have, like, small businesses like mom shops. This has actually been an increasingly influential economic ideology that has been spreading around. Even some fascists favor this economic system. So there are different forms of corporatism. You can't say, oh, corporatism is this and that, because...
Or it's capitalism, like social democracy.
Or Marxism.
Mussolini's corporatism was different from Hitler's corporatism, for example.
Or even the corporatism in America.
Yeah, there are different forms of corporatism. In fact, some forms of corporatism I could see easily working. I would favor some forms of corporatism, honestly.
Well, some forms have worked.
There's social corporatism,
Yeah.
which is basically social democracy and corporatism put together.
Yeah, I've had commies ask me, have you seen any fascist systems work? Well, have I seen any communist states that are pure, that go by your actual theory, that are not revisionist, that haven't collapsed? Well, no. They've all collapsed.
I mean, it depends how you define work.
yeah.
The thing is, with most well-known fascist governments, they worked really well. It's just that they were militaristically expansive, extraordinarily
And they got,
aggressive.
well, main thing is they got defeated. That's the reason why they fell in the first place.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't. I don't think that's indicative that a government doesn't work. Like the British Empire got defeated, but it worked, and it worked for a very long time. Same thing with Rome. The Visigoths crushed them, but it's not to say that it didn't work.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's mainly the corruption.
Here's a quick list of different forms of corporatism. There's kinship corporatism, Christian corporatism, biological corporatism, communitarian corporatism, absolutist corporatism, progressive corporatism, corporate solidarism, liberal corporatism, fascist corporatism, which is basically a third position between capitalism and socialism. And yeah, if you really think about it, corporatism is favored by fascists is when you have the illusion of private property, so to speak. Wouldn't you argue that? Because, like, you have private property, but it's under the control of the state.
Well, that's the difference.
It's genocidal.
Well, then it's not private property.
The corporation needs
There's a difference between private property under capitalism and private property under fascism. Under capitalism, private property is a right. Under fascism, private property is just a privilege.
Hey guys, I'm gonna end this stream right now. Does anyone have final thoughts or anything?
Oh.
Yeah, I'll go first. I have one final thought, and that's when you say this is what something means, always define your definition and make sure you establish with the person you're talking to what definition they're using of the word so that you're both not talking at opposite ends of a spectrum or talking over each other. That's what I'd say.
I mean, like, I define capitalism as an economic ideology that favors private property. And it's kind of vague, but it kind of implies that if you favor private property, then that means you believe that private property is a good thing, capital assets are a good
And
thing.
economic freedom.
Actually,
Yeah, and
George
pri-
Soros has one last thing he has to say.
I got one last thing too.
I do too.
Long live the global Semitic kleptocracy.
I'll go last.
People go ham.
Who will go next? Ethan?
I'm going last.
No problem, kid.
I guess I'll go
Think-
last.
I think I'll go. The problem with most of like these libertarians to say, as I say, I'm not like you guys say capitalism's this and this. I say neither communism or capitalism works. So there's a third option, which I know most people go, oh, you're a socialist because you don't promote capitalism, and I'll get called a capitalist by commies. But frankly, that's retarded because they don't want to study. And say adios, mi general.
Adios.
Adios, degenerate.
That's to piss off one who cannot be named.
Alright, who else wants to go now?
Wait a minute, when the Gaming Patriot finish?
I'd like to say that we should probably stop. Well,